Chairman, thank you, and Ranking Member also. Mr. Secretary, thank you for the job that you do. I know it's a difficult job. On one side, my colleagues, the Republicans, say that you're deporting too many people, and then on my side, the Democrats are saying you're deporting too many people, not enough, maybe too much. So I understand your job is very difficult, and I appreciate the good job that you're doing. I also appreciate you were down there in Laredo this weekend, and Mr. Chairman, he was there. He did the Washington birthday celebration, walked the whole parade on the streets of Laredo. We just didn't have the music behind us, but he walked the streets of Laredo, and thank you. You were there to open the first pre-clearance of Mexican customs being in the U.S. territory to pre-clear cargo. So we actually have customs, Mexican customs on our territory. First one. We started this 4.5 years ago under President Calderon, and I'm glad that you were able to finish this program, and we want to thank you so much for doing that. The other part that I want to say is I do support the work that you're doing on deportation. It's hard. I support full immigration reform, but again, if we don't enforce a immigration order after all the appeals have gone through and they've had their day in court, then why do we need Border Patrol? Why do we need immigration judges and members? As you know, we added monies, 55 new immigration judges this last year. Why do we have detention centers? As you know, I added some language to have transparency to make sure that whoever is there is treated with respect and dignity and provided the care once they're in our hands. And I just wanted to say that I know that's a very difficult issue. Some people attack you on one side, and the other side, they'll attack you. But again, I appreciate your measured approach to this very difficult time. I do have two questions. One have to do with the Cubans coming in, but I'll save this for the next, I assume we're going to have another question on that. I'll save that because, as you know, in the last 2 years, out of the 67,000 Cubans have come in, 47,000 have come through the port of Laredo, but I'll save that for the next one. I want to talk to you about the letter that Governor Abbott and myself sent. I thank you for your response. I do want to follow up on this, but I know that on your statement you put there that the unaccompanied kids and the families have gone down 65% from December of 2015 to January of 2016, a 1 month difference. And again, that's always good news. The numbers I was actually looking at, Mr. Secretary, were 4 months from 2015, October 1st of 2015 to the end of January, and then compare it to the same 4 months of FY16. Actually, the numbers are an increase of 171% for family units, and for unaccompanied kids, it's 102%. Pure numbers. In FY15, we had 9,000 families. And FY16, it went up to 24,000. This is only those 4 months. And for unaccompanied kids, for those 4 months, from 10,015 to 20,000 plus on that. So again, I appreciate the numbers you're using for 1 month difference, but I like to look more at the trend. And again, the trend that you pointed out is important. The question I have is the letter that Governor Abbott and I sent, and again, we'll follow up at a different time, but we thought it was a 50% cut in National Guard aerial support. You're saying it's a 5%. I think we might have a this, but I want to sit down and work this out with you and get this cleared up. But I do want to thank you. But if you have any thoughts on Operation Phalanx, and again, I appreciate your good work.
Yes, sir. A couple of things. First, as Congressman Cuellar noted, I was at the 119-year-old International Bridge Ceremony in Laredo, Texas last Saturday. It's a quite remarkable ceremony where 2 kids from the U.S. side and 2 children from the Mexican side walk across the bridge, meet midway at the bridge and hug each other, followed by us grown-ups. And afterward, there's a huge parade in Laredo, Texas, and Congressman and I participated in it. I said, Henry, why don't we walk? And he said, I haven't done that since I was 12 years old. And we walked. We must have encountered probably 10,000 people that day. And he said something to me that I still remember, which is, these people want immigration reform, but they also want the border kept under control. And I said, well, I'm with them. So it was a great day. I can attest that Congressman Cuellar is extremely popular in Laredo, Texas. I was basking in his glow during that parade. The numbers of migrants apprehended on our southern border, I look at every single day. First thing, along with my daily intelligence report, I get this report right here. And you are correct, Congressman, that compared to the fall of 2014, the fall of 2015 was much higher. That is absolutely correct. I drew the contrast between December 2015 and January 2016 because the numbers in the fall of 2015 were rising and they fell off sharply at the beginning of the year, as reflected in this chart right here, the blue line. And that trend has continued in February 2016 on a daily basis. I look at this every single day and I look at it 12 different ways. The numbers for January and February 2016 are almost exactly like they were in January, February 2015. That's a good thing, but there's always the seasonal uptick. We can count on the seasonal increase in the spring, which we have to watch and we have to be prepared for. I'm just glad that the numbers fell off sharply at the beginning of the year. No one wants to see, for humanitarian reasons and for resource reasons, another crisis like we had in summer 2014. In terms of the flight hours, I do believe it's important to look at the big picture. Over the last 5-10 years, CBP itself has added much to its own capability in terms of flight hours, in terms of other resources at the border, such that we were able to give back to DOD about half of what they had been giving to us over the last 6 years in flight hours. But the overall decrease in flight hours was about 5 or 4%, but that is alongside of a lot of other additions we've made to border security since Operation Phalanx started. So I hope I've answered your question. I'm happy to have a further discussion with you on that. I have more detailed numbers right here.
Sir, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, when you were in Laredo, as you know, Laredo percentage-wise, according to the U.S. Census, is the most Hispanic city in the country, 96% Hispanic. As you and I talked, we, including myself, we support immigration reform. But we do want to have order, not have chaos at the border. And that's why your measured approach is well appreciated there at the border. My question is, and one of the questions folks keep asking me is, how many people have been deported, let's say, from the unaccompanied kids or the families or other folks? And I know ICE has some numbers per how many have been deported in the last year, and Mexico is always #1. But do you have any, in the last couple of years, the folks we've been talking about, how many have been deported?
There are actual numbers that are available. It depends on from what point you count, and it depends on exactly what class of people you are referring to. The numbers are available. We can get you that. But as you know, we have made a renewed push with regard to those who have been ordered deported, and they've reached the end of the appeal process, and their asylum claim, whatever it was.
And the media made it sound like it was a mass deportation. I think that was the words that they used. How many people were we actually talking about? And these are the ones that finished their
the particular weekend, January 2-3, the number was 121
right.
Taken into custody. Those actually removed were a subset of that, because once they were taken into custody, They got stays from removals, and so presumably those people are still here. But again, I want to emphasize we didn't just do the one weekend and stop. Enforcement actions are continuing.
Yeah, and you're enforcing the federal immigration judge after they've had their day in court and their appeal is over. That's what you're focusing on.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Let me ask you about Cubans.
There you go.
I need a copy of that.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Yes. By the way, you had a great story last night of the TV station when you went up to them. Nobody has ever done that before, and right in the middle of parade. So great story last night. Right. Let me ask you about Cuban. As you know, in my southern part of my district, I have unaccompanied kids from Central America coming in. My northern part of my district in Laredo, I'm talking about just the border area, we have Cubans. 67,000 the last year. A couple of years, I say 2 years, 45,000 of them have come through the port of Laredo. And as you know, because of the 1966 Cuban Adjustment Act, and that was during the Cold War era, very different. Cubans, as you know, the moment they touch, they're in. It used to be what it's still called the wet foot, dry foot policy. But now they've decided to go, instead of going through the waters and have Coast Guard try to push them back, they're coming in through Ecuador, they're coming in Panama, Colombia. I mean, they go all the way up here. Till Nicaragua said, hold on. Now what they're doing is, at least the ones in Costa Rica, are flying in directly from Liberia, Costa Rica, straight to Nuevo Laredo, which is a city right across Laredo. They take a bus. 45 minutes, I've been told, 45 minutes, 1 hour, they cross in. The moment they cross the street, the bridge. They cross the bridge, they go into a money exchange house, Casa de Cambio. They start filling out their paperwork for the immediate benefits. And as you know, they get immediate benefits the moment they come in. In about 1 year, they become a legal resident, and then they're fast-tracked to a naturalized citizen. My understanding is, the moment they come across, if they commit a felony, they cannot be deported. Am I correct on that? And I don't know if you know that. My understanding is they cannot be deported the moment they're coming in. Do you or the administration, it's been very quiet on this, and I've been talking about this issue because I know this has to be a law that we need to change, and I'm talking to one of my colleagues in this committee, in the Appropriations, about this issue to come in with some solution. But there's two parts of the law. The 1966 Cuban Adjustment Act, which allows them to touch and they're in. And then the other one is the 1980 law that deals with with the refugee assistance. So I say that because I'm going to ask the committee to consider making some adjustments. But does the administration, I guess until we change the law, do you all have any thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, you are correct that the overwhelming majority of Cuban migrants who come to this country arrive at land ports of entry. Most Americans probably think that they come by sea on boats. The overwhelming majority have been coming to ports of entry and simply presenting themselves. Because of the Cuban Adjustment Act and because of our policies, our wet foot, dry foot policy. The policy is reflected in, I think, a 1999 memorandum, and it basically says that those who arrive here, there's no absolute rule in support of parole, but it says something like we'll be favorably inclined toward parole or something like that. So not everyone is automatically paroled, and there are circumstances under which someone might not be paroled. And being convicted of a serious crime at the time, I would imagine, would be one of those circumstances. I don't have the policy in front of me, but those are the words along those lines. We are in the process of normalizing relations with Cuba, as you know, sir. And at some point, the topic of migration will have to be addressed.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Can I just ask, is that 1999 memorandum a Homeland Security?
Yes, it was issued out of, I believe it was issued out of INS.
INS.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And again, I appreciate your good work.